All right, Isaac, we're super happy to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a great opportunity to talk with you too.
For sure. Love nerding out about Web3.
Always,
Bef-
always.
Before we dive into kind of what you're working on and at Agave, let's go back before you got into Web3. What were you working on then and how'd you get into it?
Yeah, before Web3, I was into software engineering. So what got me into it was I had just graduated from U of M, University of Michigan, and I moved out to San Diego for work at the time. And yeah, everything was shut down because of the pandemic. So I spent a lot of time reading and working on side projects. And at the time, I was reading Computer Networking, a top-down approach. And in there, it has a section on peer-to-peer architectures. And one of the things that I was really interested in was BitTorrent and how they
Mm.
incentivized the file sharing and data distribution. And they were using a tit for tat incentivization mechanism within there. Um, and at the same time, I was running a lot because gyms were closed, and I was listening to the Bitcoin standard on audiobook. And those two things kind of clicked together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what Ethereum is. It's an incentivized way to have a group of people in a peer-to-peer network and contribute their compute power to the system. And once that kind of clicked for me, I dove right in. I started uh, doing some side projects into smart contract development and doing a lot of reading in smart contract development and also like the fundamentals of blockchain.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a perfect explanation of what Ethereum is. I love that. And the those of us who were around, we all remember BitTorrent. Trying to find all our
Right.
movies and our songs. And they had it all.
It was like the Cedars
Yep,
and the
I was a
Leechers, right?
leecher.
What else was there? Yeah, I was definitely a Leecher too.
I
Yeah.
definitely did not contribute to that network.
No.
So yeah, talk to us about some of those side projects. Where did you start? So you're in this new world. You're like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. What was kind of the first thing that you decided to hack around with?
Yeah, it was just simple things on the test net. So just writing smart contracts that would do like auctions, and it was just never released or shown to anyone, but it was just like for my own amusement and for my own learning. So it was just simple projects like that, just to like get a better understanding of how to actually program these smart contracts um, and the entire process of shipping these, because it's definitely a paradigm shift from normal programming. Because the first time you deploy a smart contract, you're like, oh, I can't update this, right? You're like, it's shipped, it's a product now. So that's definitely a paradigm shift, and there's a few others in there that I wanted to get familiar with and actually understand before I jumped into any real projects. So it's mostly just side projects for learning and understanding.
Nice. Yeah, how accessible is smart contract development for like what level of experience do you think people have to have? Is it something that you can just maybe pick up in a weekend and try to hack around and stuff, or do you have to have a pretty deep knowledge of software engineering?
Yeah, I would say it depends on what level you're doing it to. Obviously, there's a lot of hacks in the ecosystem right now, so that worries a lot of people because one of the things you do see is that um, there's a lack of experience in the industry right now. It seems because it is such a new technology. You don't have the people who've been programming in Solidity and these other languages for 10 years now, like you do when you look at people who've been programming in C++ and Java. So you don't have these people with decades of experience, and also, those people with decades of experience, they were passed on knowledge from mentors, and that's lacking right now. So there are a lot of concerns of lack of experience, but I think it's something where, if you're dedicated towards anything and you want to learn anything, you can jump right into it and do it. I'm a firm believer in that there isn't like a traditional academic route isn't necessary for a lot of the things, and that's how I jumped into the space, was just reading books. And actually, it was, I don't know if you're familiar with the O'Reilly database. Yeah, I love that. So I'm always reading books on there, and that's how I've learned a lot of the stuff I have about smart contract development and blockchain. Because I think the first book I started with on there was Programming Bitcoin by Jimmy Song, and that gives a really good fundamental approach to actually like how everything's working from from the actual fundamental math all the way up to how Bitcoin is working, and then from there, moving on to smart contract development. So yeah, I think that anyone that's willing to jump in and actually learn, they can do it. Yeah.
I love that that you're referencing books to learn programming or just like software development or any like piece of the software world. I think it's very, very cool. You mentioned that this industry, or even this like concept of software engineering in the Web3 space, is pretty young, just because there hasn't been all this like background and mentors and so forth into the space, and we're kind of discovering everything new. How can you tell, or how can people tell if someone knows what they're actually talking about or what they're doing, or if they're just faking it throughout the way? And I know a lot of us are faking it just because we're all learning. But how can you tell the fakers from the like real, actually, leaders here in the space?
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that's hard to tell, because everyone's figuring this space out, still. So no one has a firm grasp of what Web3 and NFTs and the trajectory of this space. But definitely looking at just looking at the fundamental uh, software development process. Are you writing test cases? Are you testing the edges? Are you fuzz testing? Are you that's, I think, mostly what I would look for in those cases. Are you just pushing code onto the blockchain and it never gets touched by anyone until the first client? Or do you have a rigorous testing process and maybe even some DevOps along the way? Are you pushing the test net, and actually having a staging process? I think that's one of the things I would definitely look for, is that DevOps process and how you actually release a software cycle.
For listeners that aren't necessarily technical, you mentioned something that I think is really important. That's a big distinction between blockchain development, smart contract development, and like regular Web 2. And that's when you push a smart contract, it is on the blockchain, and you can't really change it after you do that, right? It's like, because when you're coding in like Web 2, you can push code and be like, oh, it didn't work, I'm gonna go change it, and you can just like keep iterating. But when you push a smart contract, it's there forever. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah, that's. I guess that's partially accurate. So there are ways around that where you can do proxy contracts. So you can have a
Okay.
contract point to another contract, and then you can update the logic. But there are some stuff, for more in depth changes. It's harder to roll out updates based on that, and that's when you'll see like a new version come out, like Uniswap V1, V2, V3 is when you need these larger scale changes. But that is one of the big differences that I've seen. Is it's almost more like hardware development. When you're doing hardware development, you release a product and you can't update the hardware once it's in the hands of the customer, right? You can write code that you ship to the hardware that can hopefully get around some of the rough patches that might be in the hands of the customer. But so that's, I think, that the equivalent there, where you can have small patches to the hardware to get around these things. But once it's shipped, it's shipped. Yeah.
Got it. And for listeners as well that don't necessarily understand what a smart contract is, how do you explain a smart contract to someone who doesn't really know blockchain that well?
Right. Yeah. So I would describe a smart contract as a program that runs on many computers at the same time, and that's essentially, and that the code can't be changed. It's permanent logic that is ran by many computers that agree on the same outcome, and it can't be changed. So that's the main difference between regular programming and software, and then what we now see as smart contracts.
Do you have any either funny, famous, or infamous examples of smart contracts going wrong because they were shipped out and there was something wrong with them, actually, that caused something funny to happen?
I don't think I have any examples, but there are a lot of cases where, so in the early days, in our first project at Verilink, we were linking physical objects to the blockchain, to NFTs, and we began to start to run into issues of data complexity, because we started adding new different ways to interact with the NFTs. So we might add an augmented reality experience, and if you've ever dealt with 3D or like modeling files, there's a lot of different formats. So then we have to handle all these different formats, and so there's a lot of complexities because as we shipped the early NFTs, our code changed a little bit, and then the next round of NFTs were another variation, and all of a sudden, like on our client side, we had to handle all these different variations that we had shipped out as NFTs. So yeah, that's one of the things that we saw, but I don't have any stories of like funny things going wrong or anything like that.
Well, hopefully they were all tested well then. What
They were.
how does the progression then of you said with Uniswap there's version 1, 2, 3, 4. How when you ship hardware, you kind of like the customer has that hardware, and like you said, you can upgrade versions, and that's fine. How does the like support system or just like support and maintenance for legacy versions of smart contracts work, or do the new versions just completely override them? Or I'd love to learn more about that.
Right. Yeah. So once you deploy a smart contract, so like a version 1, it's permanently on chain. So and then at some point during a software cycle, you'll probably end of life something. So you just stop support for it, and then you move on to a new version, and that becomes the trusted version, the latest version, similar to the Linux distributions, right? They have the LTS, and they have these releases that have been tested and have support all the programs that you need. So it's similar to that, where you'll move on to another version, and that's the one that's supported. That's the latest one that is promoted by the company.
Could since it's always out there, like V1 of Uniswap, could someone just build a front end that used V1 of Uniswap, since the smart contract is probably still out there, or is that smart contract somehow like burned, I guess?
I believe they could. There are ways to like close down smart contracts. You can sort
Okay.
of burn them, or you can freeze them, and they're not able to be ran anymore. But I'm not sure if Uniswap did that. That'd be something interesting to check out. Try to hook it into like a client on there.
Yeah, it'd be like the Wayback Machine for for Web3.
Right.
You touched on kind of your first project that you worked on called Verilink. Tell us more about how you got into the physical NFT realm.
Yeah, so it was my co-founder that came to me with the idea at the time. So he was working at another startup. They were doing sports gaming. They were a sports gaming app, and they were looking into NFTs. And one of the things that he realized was that they were trying to ship merch and NFTs at the same time as to the players and the users that were on their app. And he realized there wasn't a great way to tie the NFT to the merch. So he came to me with this idea, and it started off really simple. It was, can we hook physical items up to NFTs? So we started off with an Arduino prototype where it was just an NFC reader on an Arduino. We would tap it, and it would be hooked up to an NFT on the blockchain, and then we could interact with the NFT on the blockchain through this Arduino. Because we gave the Arduino special privileges within that NFT, where it could be transferred just based on NFC tap. So that's the earliest prototype, and we thought it was really cool. And we were talking with other people in the space, and they were really excited about it. So then we started using these actual blockchain NFC cards, and we started attaching them to artworks, because we saw so much similarity between people who were buying artwork, the digital form. And we thought, there's a lot of artists that do physical only work that they want to get into this blockchain world of art. And so we were attaching these NFC cards to actual artworks, physical artworks, and then linking them to an NFT on the blockchain. So that was the early stages of Verilink and what we started with.
Yeah, that's really cool. Can you kind of explain why we would want a physical object on chain, and kind of like what's the problem that's solving to put a piece of art on chain digitally as well?
Right. Yeah. So what we saw, and there's actually a lot of other players in this space now. When we previously talked, we talked about IYK, that they're a big player, and they're doing great. They're working with some big projects, POAP recently, And then there's other ones like Ariani. So some of these people are using it more for like the tracking and inventory management side, where you now have this permanent, immutable record of the item, where you can track the provenance of it and the history of this item over time. And then on the other side, people see it as more of a lifestyle brand, or like a metaverse product line, similar to what Artifact and Nike are doing, where they're hooking these or attaching these NFC tags to hoodies so that their NFT is on the blockchain. So it ranges from all the way from like inventory management and tracking systems all the way to just metaverse and lifestyle product lines.
And having my hoodie digitally on my avatar.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
What's POAP doing with the physical like NFTs?
Yeah, so I haven't looked too much into that project, but I saw that you could. So they were working with IYK, and IYK has the POAP button. I don't know if you've seen that, where you can tap the button and you get a POAP. So people were around these Web3 events. People were like badges, and then you can go tap it with your phone, and you can get a badge based on this. So from what I thought I read about them, they were doing where you could hook up your ENS name to it,
Cool.
and you could tap someone's badge, and then it says I'm at whatever dot ETH.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. I just looked at it here, and that's exactly what it says. Is it allows you to securely distribute POAP mints to people you meet. So it's basically just a little bit. It's just a proof that, not proof of attendance, but proof that you met, which is pretty cool. I like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which we were actually doing. We released a similar thing that we called proof of interaction protocol, where it was, you tap a tag and you can provably show that you interacted with something. And we thought it'd be a really good way to show, different life events or experiences. For example, one of the things that I was really interested in was hiking. If you make it to the top of this hike, say
Yep.
Yosemite Falls, there's this NFC tag at the top on the sign, and you can tap it with your phone, and you get this NFT badge showing that, hey, I made it to the top of Yosemite Falls. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do with that when you tie it to the experiential side in the physical world, and that's what IYK is doing with POAP. So it's really cool to see what they're doing in this space.
Sean, that's what we could do with the wine bottles.
Yeah. We're really big wine fans, and I have a bunch of NFC tags here, and I want to put them all in my wine bottles. And I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but we'll do something with NFTs.
Oh, cool. Yeah, hook them up to NFTs and maybe auction them off on OpenSea or something like that.
Yeah. I want to figure out proof of proof of consumption. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that'd be really cool.
Especially the
Everyone taps
the liquid amount too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isaac, so where is Verilink today?
Yeah, so we entered an accelerator at the start of the summer. So we entered, it's called ERA, Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it's New York's leading tech accelerator. And during the time at the accelerator, we pivoted to what is now Agave, which is an insights engine for blockchain games.
Mm-hmm.
And that came from, a lot of conversations and just really trying to see where the physical linking would fit into the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed like it was too early at the time to actually have an approach in the market that was also easily scalable.
Gotcha. So what happens? So how does that work in like maybe the Web3 space? Because all the stuff that you've created kind of lives on for forever. So what happens to the artwork and these tags and so forth that you've kind of used on these pieces of art? Even if it was in the early stages, does it kind of all disappear? Does Verilink like no longer, or is it kind of still live on somewhere?
Yeah, so it still lives on, and we're still supporting it. We have the Verilink app, which is it's actually a blockchain wallet that's focused on the physical aspect. So people can tap and get NFTs into their mobile wallet, and then they can also tap and view the NFT that's on the artwork, or any physical object. So we still have the Verilink app out on the App Store, and then we have a web client as well. If you tap these tags, and we're still contributing to the project because there's kind of an ecosystem around physical NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of Kong.land or the DAO of Kong, but
Maybe.
yeah, so they're the ones that make the chips that are these cryptographically secure NFC chips that they use the asymmetric keys,
Mm-hmm.
and that way it's essentially a blockchain wallet on an NFC tag, and you can easily hook it up to uh, an NFT on the blockchain. So we still support everything that's out in the ecosystem, and it's a project that both my co-founder Nico and I are really fond of.
Uh-huh.
We had a lot of fun and enjoyed the development experience.
Uh-huh.
So we're still supporting it, but like there's nothing we need to actively support.
Gotcha.
And then we hope to maybe revive it later on once we see that there's more interest in it.
Gotcha. That's really cool. What happens so in the Web2 world, if you stop supporting something, if you stop hosting something, or like you have a web app, it just kind of dies because it's like no longer. Is that the same thing in the Web3 space?
Right. So that's kind of, I guess it depends on the project, because like if you stop supporting stuff, the NFTs might still be around. So for example, if it's hosted on IPFS or one of these decentralized hosting systems, Arweave, then you'll still have access to the data and the actual NFT. But the difference is that the devs or the community might stop supporting the project. So there might not be like an incentive anymore to stay along with the project. For example, if a Web3 game, if they have a lot of digital assets and they sell to people, and if the devs quit, they stop contributing towards the game or something like that, then most likely people will stop interacting with the project. So there is still a dependence on the project being supported in some way or in some form, but the assets and everything that's on chain does live on.
So there is an opportunity for old pieces of art. Like if we fast forward 300 years from now, this could be, we could be in like Da Vinci or whatever kind of famous artist world right now, where we've created these projects. These NFTs are like live on into the future, even though the project might be completely kaput within like 5 years, but someone can still find them, or you could still trade them, or you could buy and sell, etc. 300 years from now.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what's one of the things that's so appealing about NFTs is the permanence. And that's one of the things that the physical artists liked as well. It's like a snapshot of their art in digital form that can live on permanently, no matter where their physical art is.
So you went through NYCERA, is that what it's called?
Yep. Yeah, that's
cool.
That's the one.
You went in with the Verilink project and you came out with Agave. Talk to us a little bit about what happened in the messy middle there.
Yeah, it was so there was a lot of talking to so ERA is a great accelerator. They have such a great mentor network, and we were able to talk to a lot of different people to understand where this would be going and what markets we could look into, and we looked into markets all the way from inventory management to metaverse product lines. And what we saw was that for a lot of these, for the inventory management, the cost per unit of our tags was too high to actually do it in a reasonable economical way. So we started looking more into the metaverse product lines and how we could fit into that. And what we saw was that a lot of these companies that do NFTs for different brands, they are a whole design studio. So they do the entire process and creation of these NFTs, and then the community management. And that's not something that, as technical founders, we were interested in or wanted to get into, because we just like building tech and the infrastructure and the frameworks. And the community management, and then also the design and all that wasn't as appealing to us. So we decided to pivot, and we determined to pivot to the insights engine for blockchain games, because one of the things we were asked when we were talking with a lot of brands was, And usually the person that we would target in the company was the marketers, because they saw this as a way to promote their brand through NFTs. But they would always ask for, metrics or analytics on, how they could allocate a budget and have KPIs to show that this user engagement and this method was actually improving their brand and improving their bottom line, either driving retention or attracting new customers. So we were really interested in analytics and how we could prove that out. And then talking with other Web3 consumer experiences, we saw that there's not great analytics out there currently for people to understand who's buying into their project, who's contributing to their project. When you're determining a project or you're looking to launch, what's the market segmentation? What does the market look like? There's just not that much out there for the actual user experience, where there's a lot of analytics tools based on the trading activity and the speculation, because everyone wants to answer, when moon, right? When will my NFT go up? Well, when will it go down? But
When
there's
Lambo.
right, exactly. And but the tools don't help you understand the player experience and the actual user engagement and who these users are. So that's what we decided we wanted to look into further. And then we saw that the biggest impact we could give was in Web3 gaming, because in gaming, it's a constant cycle of engagement in order to attract your users and keep them playing, right? You have to, if you look at any traditional game, you constantly have to collect analytics and improve the gameplay, whether it's Fortnite or or Dota or any other game. It's a constant cycle of collecting analytics, understanding the user experience and behaviors, and then improving the game based on that, which it doesn't really exist in Web3 gaming at the moment.
For sure. Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of started off seeing this trend or this need for analytics just in Web3 in general, and then you honed in on Web3 gaming. Before we talk about the gaming side of it, what are some important metrics or analytics that Web3 projects look for? Because I imagine it's a lot different than like a SaaS company where all you're focused on is LTV and churn and cost of acquisition. What are the important ones for a Web3 project?
Right. Yeah. So for the Web3 projects, what we're seeing is that a lot of them, they'll look at the actual volume. One of the biggest tools that they have is being able to look at the OpenSea volume, but that doesn't tell them the full story of where that volume is coming from, because that doesn't actually tell you like the amount of user engagement, right? It tells you how many people are trading it, but it doesn't tell you how many people are enjoying your community. So one of the other metrics,
and volume, just so I'm clear, volume would be like amount of people or amount of money flowing into an NFT project, right?
right? Exactly. So if you look on OpenSea, it's the amount of trade, the amount in NFTs that was traded per day, whether the actual crypto value in ETH or Matic or something like that. So yeah, that's one of the tools that they look at, but it doesn't tell them the whole user journey, right? Like what drove that volume. And so some of the other things that they might look at is Discord activity. Are people really engaged? Twitter activity. So a lot of off-chain stuff is what they'll look to, because a lot of these communities are driven by the off-chain events, Twitter posts or Discord posts or events, stuff like that. So that's why we look towards Web3 games, because we saw a lot of this activity can be analyzed in the form of this online gaming, the gaming contracts that they're interacting with. How many people played this game and interacted with this contract that's, for example, in Axie Infinity starts a battle or something like that. Once we can view that, it's all on chain. So that way we can see how many people started a battle and who these people were, what they're doing with other games. And from there we can have a better picture and understanding of the user behavior.
To kind of shed some light on what gaming and Web3 means, maybe we can use Axie Infinity as an example. Could you kind of walk us through what a Web3 game is and why it's different than a non-Web3 game?
Right. So the main difference in a Web3 game is that the digital assets and the token that you use it's all on the blockchain. It's using blockchain as the rails for that economy. So if you look at mobile gaming is a great example of this. If you look at a lot of mobile games, for example, like Clash of Clans or something like that, you buy gems in the game, right? So they already have these economies within the game. But the difference here is that on Web3, these economies are on the blockchain. So that means that you can trade assets between different players, whereas you can't do that in normal like Clash of Clans games. You buy gems, it's your gems, and then you also, once you exchange USD for gems, you can't convert it back, right? So this is a way for you to be able to convert currencies around and have an actual flow of money in and out of the system. And also it creates an entire microeconomy for the game that's on the blockchain. So that's the big difference. And I think once we move away from sort of the term, Web3 gaming, where it's just, a normal game that people have fun and enjoy, but in the background it's running on the blockchain. I think that's the goal, and what everyone's looking to move towards is not promoting it as a Web3 game, but just as a game, but everything's on the blockchain, in terms of the economy and the transactions.
Yep, that makes sense. Can you explain a little bit about what Axie Infinity is? Maybe the some of the base like mechanics of the game, and what's involved in the Web3 side. If there's more than just an economy in there.
Right. Yeah. So the basic idea behind Axie Infinity is that you'll get these characters, you'll be able to breed these characters and create new characters, and all these characters are represented as NFTs on the blockchain, and then you can level them up and you can battle with other players in the game. And then during this time, you get experience and in-game items. So that's the general idea behind the game. And yeah, it's all in browser.
Got it. And so, okay, so Axie Infinity has, tons of users, and then you guys as Agave are building an analytics engine for games like that. What specifically does that look like, or where are you guys at with that?
Yeah, so we're still more in the early stages, and we're actually launching the end of this month is when we're launching our beta. But what we're doing is we're analyzing the user profiles and the interactions with this game. So there's a lot of external activity that happens on the blockchain. For example, people are buying into the project, they're selling out of the project, and then they're also renting their items in these projects. So they might rent an Axie Infinity character to another player so that they can use it for a certain amount of time. And then so there's this entire economy of people doing all these things, whether it's renting, trading, staking. And the idea is to give an analysis of the activity that's happening, whether it's any of the ones I just listed, and then also what kind of users are doing this, and what other games are they playing. So have an idea of the market segmentation, because the interesting thing is, and one of the demos that we launched was a recommendation system. So just like in the way that Netflix, when you watch content on Netflix, they'll recommend other content based on what you watched. So that's a recommender algorithm. We can do the same thing on the blockchain. So we can see the user address, and we can see the other games that they interacted with, the communities that they're in. And we can build a picture of the content that they might enjoy. And what kind of a user are they? What genres are they into? And what kind of activity you can expect from them in the future.
So with what Agave does for analytics here, specifically in your space when you're focusing around gaming, how does your business model change from if this was Web 2 based versus Web 3? Do you have just one set of customers, or do you have potentially multiple? Because the analytics that you can derive are really almost infinite here.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that we've seen, especially with the amount of different entities that are in the gaming space. So you have the B2C type of analytics, where the people playing the game, they want to know, how many people are playing the game. Will my NFT go up? Will it go down? What's the most popular items in the game? So you have the B2C analytics, where the common players want to see what's going on in the game. and understand that. And then you have the B2B analytics, where obviously the game studio, they want to understand the player behavior and the experience, and also the entire microeconomy and the activity within that. So you have that version of analytics that is for the game studio. And then also there are this new entity in Web3 gaming, which is the guilds, which the guilds are a group of people. They're a DAO that will invest in these gaming assets. So they'll go and they'll buy a whole series of Axie Infinity characters, and then they'll rent them out to other players in the game in order for them to experience it. So there's a lot of different versions of analytics that could be created for these different target audiences. And I think that the one core focus is that, like, when you're a startup, you really have to segment the market and provide a niche service that will provide value and the exact value that someone wants for that target audience. Because we could build a generic tool that, you know, might have some value to all of them, but it might not be as appealing in that case. So what we really want to do is, you know, find the niche target that we think we can provide the most value to, which in this case is game studios, and build analytics specifically for them.
Very cool. Tell us about your business model. How do you make money?
Right. Yeah. So the idea is it's a normal SaaS business model. So we have a dashboard, and it's a subscription, you know, every month that they'll pay for it. And we have both monthly and then daily statistics that, based on the gameplay, that will update on the dashboard. And then on the side of that, there's a lot of other things that the game might be interested in, whether it's a competitive analysis or looking into a specific transaction that's happening. And in that case, we offer custom reports, and that's a way for us to also learn what other things that these games might want, because it's always a learning process when you're working with these customers and running a startup, because you want to know what, you know, you can build that will provide the most value and help these people be successful at what they do, because you know that's the reason you're there. So that's a way for us to kind of get new information with these custom reports, where they'll say, yeah, I'm really interested in maybe looking more into this detail, and then we'll do a custom report based on that, see if we can roll it out into a tool for the dashboard.
When you're describing your business model, you said they will pay for it. Who is they specifically? Who's like your main target customer that you're serving?
Yeah, our target customer is the game studio, specifically the game designers within the studio, because they're the ones that manage all the game mechanics and the behavior in the game. So, yeah.
Got it. And so to scale, do you need do you need all of those game studios to be a customer, or is there a lot of this data are like publicly available on the blockchain, so you can almost like pre-build analytics for them, and basically like you can just tease them their own analytics and say like, well, if you want more, you have to pay us.
Right. Yeah, that's actually our go-to-market strategy. Is we'll build a report based on the on-chain activity that we see, and we'll go to these game studios and we'll say, hey, look at how much information we have about your game that, you know, you might not even know. So if you approach someone and you can show them that you know their game better than they do, then it's a pretty easy sell after that, and also show them like the value that you can provide to them. I think is not only showing them that, you know, you see all this data about the game, but also providing like, hey, here's a suggestion and an actionable insight based on that data to improve your game.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so smart. I wonder what Thomas and I are going to start thinking about where else that applies other than games with Web3, because it's such a, like you said, an easy sale, right? You just automatically prove your value.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of opportunity there, especially because right now it seems like all of the analytics on the blockchain, they just display the data. So if you go to like Etherscan, it displays the data. If you go to DappRadar, it displays the data, but it doesn't give an interpretation of that data. And that's what we're really looking to build as well. So I think there's a lot of potential in that. And maybe an analogy to that would be like Instagram, right? So they're a great example of a service that based on your likes and your views and all that, they constantly improve your feed. So what we kind of see right now in the blockchain is that the only data you have is user address X interacted with contract Y, and that would be, for example, like if Instagram only knew that user ID X liked picture Y, right? Which doesn't tell them much. But if they see that user Isaac, liked a surfing video, then they start to get an idea of like who this person is, what content can I start feeding to them, maybe what kind of products can I start marketing to them through my platform. And the same thing kind of goes for the blockchain, where if you were to actually understand that this interaction with the contract, it represented starting a battle in Axie Infinity, then you can understand that they're a player, that maybe they like these RPG experiences, and here's other things that they might be into. So that's sort of the idea, is a layer on top of the data, a layer of insights on top of the data.
This is really cool that you're basically using public data, not manipulating it, but analyzing it in a way that's useful for these studios, or anybody else for that matter. At the same time, though, because this is all public, that means that anybody can do this. So how do you maintain your competitive advantage, or what do you need to do? Because eventually, like, anybody can do this, including the game studio themselves. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that we constantly talk about is, how do we build that moat? And what we've seen is, I mean, one, in the meantime, right now, all these Web3 builders, they're really focused on their product and just shipping their product. And they don't really have enough time or capacity in order to build these analytics teams and platforms that they would like to. So, it's so in the meantime, in the short term, we can still sell them the ability to access this public data. But in the long term, it's the actual labeling of the data that we see as our moat, because we'll have all this internal system where we have all these labels of what these interactions mean, kind of just like the Instagram example, where the interaction with the contract, we know exactly what that means in terms of the user and the actual action that they did. And that's what we're trying to build up. And also, we're looking to combine off-chain data. So we might combine Discord data, the user engagement within the Discord. And then, if we see a spike of engagement in the Discord, and then we see that the volume went up, or, users were interacting with this contract more, or users went to another project after that, then we can start to actually attribute the off-chain data to the on-chain data.
I see. So basically, like, even though this data is public and you can see wallet X interacted with smart contract Y, that's all you know. You don't really know much information about it necessarily. And so what you guys are doing is internally you're tagging, smart contract Y with Axie Infinity, or avatar from this game or something. And so internally you're kind of building this knowledge that hopefully you guys will have a competitive advantage over.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think a similarity to that would be like autonomous driving. So there's all this footage of people driving online, right? And it's not as useful to these autonomous vehicle developers or these machine learning engineers, because they need labeled data. They need to know the speed, location, all these other factors that are labeled within these frames, within each image of this video. So that the actual data, although there's a lot of data out there for driving, there's actually very few data points that are valuable, only the labeled ones. So that's kind of how we see it.
So funny how almost so your competitive advantages are essentially creating your own proprietary data set that you can leverage against the public data, which is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So what's the grand vision for Agave? If you could see ahead 5 years, and you've kind of met your vision and you succeeded, what does the world look like?
Yeah. So the idea for Agave is to have something as easy to set up as Google Analytics. So I don't know if you've ever used Google Analytics before, but when you're setting up a web page and you want to add Google Analytics in, you just add the tag, right? You just, one line of code, you add the tag. And then if you want to add, custom interactions or events that you track, you might add a button press, for example. And then you say what that button press is, you label it within the analytics tool. And then Google Analytics builds you a whole dashboard with your events, the activity on your platform. That's sort of the idea where someone, develops a smart contract framework or project and they deploy it on a blockchain. And then they just point these smart contracts in their ABI into Agave. And from there, we know, the functions that are being called, we can parse the transactions, and then we can build them an entire dashboard based on that.
Love it. What Web3 projects are you kind of eyeing right now? Or there are some projects or communities that are getting you excited right now?
Yeah, so one of the ones that I'm really excited about, and disclaimer, I'm a part of it, and I've contributed to the project is Kong. So it's Kong.land, and they're the ones that we're working with to make the NFC chips that link the physical items to the digital. And they've been doing a lot of great work recently, and have been working with a lot of large projects. One of the most recent ones is Azuki. I don't know if you've ever heard of Azuki. They're a pretty large NFT project that they launched a physical NFT skateboard with Kong. So for their community. Yeah, so that's
like a 24 karat gold skateboard or something.
Yeah, that's the one. So Kong's now working with them, and they're launching that project and creating a whole standard of what they're calling PBTs, or physical backed tokens. Yeah, so those are some really interesting projects. The other one I would say is the Graph protocol, which I'm a huge fan of. It's another analytics tool. I don't know if you've looked into it before, but it has a different use case because it's a decentralized protocol. But it's a great project. And then I would say the other one's Chainlink.
Mm-hmm. Love Chainlink.
Yeah, they're doing great work.
Yeah, I went to SmartCon a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of very smart people there.
Oh, cool! Yeah, their team is amazing, and they have some great tutorials on there as well for smart contract development, and just a great community.
Yeah. Do you guys utilize Chainlink right now, or maybe in the future you'll be able to pull in some oracles for some off-chain data?
We did before. We for the physical NFTs we were using Chainlink. One of the things that we were thinking of using Chainlink was for like claiming the NFT conditionally based on off-chain events, and then the other was we were actually allowing payments for items. So, for example, you could list your physical item. You could put a price and a listing to it, and then someone could tap it and purchase it. And then we would use a Chainlink oracle to actually convert that to USD. So it'd be the matic equivalent of USD. So you could still pay in like your local currency, and there wouldn't be fluctuations, but you could trade the NFT and the item at the same time.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, Thomas, do you have any last minute questions here?
All good.
Great. Well, Isaac, if anyone listening wants to learn more about you or Agave, where do they go?
Yeah, they can jump on our Twitter. So it's agave.gg or _GG on Twitter. And then I'm Isaac_Dubuque on Twitter. So love to chat more if you're interested in what we're building, either the physical NFTs or what we're building now with the insights engine for blockchain games. And yeah, really excited because the community is always so great in Web3. Everyone's so willing to help each other out, and we're all just building in this space. So it's really cool to be a part of it.
Yep. And you said the URL is agave.gg.
Yeah, the URL, which I'm not sure if I can, is there chat here? I can send it to you after, but it's agave.gg. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it. It's nice talking again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sean and Thomas, for your time, and really appreciate you having me on here and talking with me.